Welcome back to another episode of Bass Fishing for Noobs. I'm Susie Q.
Hey guys, it's Sean. Glad to be back and back talking with you all again.
That's right. How's everything going with you, Sean?
Hanging in there. It's still been a rough go of it. My dad was in the hospital for a little bit, but I think he's going to go home tomorrow. He had kidney stone surgery today, so but he's doing good and feeling better already. So I'm hoping to go home tomorrow. So fingers crossed and prayers sent that that's going to happen. But he seems to be feeling better, so I'm grateful for that. But hopefully that's the light at the end of the tunnel, and my summer of craziness will settle down here a little bit. But
right, yeah, well, definitely wishing your dad a speedy recovery, well wishes, and getting back on his feet and getting back at it real quickly.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. How about you, Susie?
There's always something going on with me. Adam was at Gen Con, which is short for like the Geneva Convention, which used to take place in Geneva, Wisconsin, but it's now in Indianapolis. He was there this past Wednesday and then got home Sunday. Got home Sunday with 102-degree fever, not feeling good, bad cough. You guys probably see where this is going. Tested positive for COVID yesterday.
That's so fun.
Yeah. We've avoided it for this long, and he finally got it. So I'm just hoping that, if I do get it, it's not bad and quick and painless.
Well, fingers crossed. Maybe you have that special genetic makeup, that they say some people just manage to, even somebody's coughing in your face and you still don't get it. So,
Right. I mean, hey, I worked at a hospital during the height of COVID and I never got it. So I'm like, well, maybe I just have superwoman immunities or something like that. And, maybe just what I am starting to kind of feel is just like allergies or something like that, so.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed for you as well. So
yeah, so we'll see how it goes. But anywho, we do have a special guest with us tonight. I always love when we can get a fellow lady angler on here with us. I'd like to introduce you all to Miss Weslie Gray.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Doing good. Welcome to the new show.
Good.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate the invite.
Of course. So yeah, Weslie, if you want, I'm sure there may be a lot of new listeners or even, our seasoned listeners who are like, Weslie Gray, who's Weslie Gray? So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do, how you got into kayak fishing, and
okay, yeah, absolutely. So I am from a town called Huntsville, Texas. Some people may be familiar with it. It is probably the prison city capital of the world. Prison City, USA. So if you're from the area, it's one of those, if you know, you know. I get asked a lot if I'm let out on good behavior, and I just can't roll with it, So yeah, from Huntsville, Texas, grew up in the area. How I got into kayak fishing is, I don't know if it's really an interesting story or not, but kind of end of the pandemic, I had a lot of free time on my hands. I was working remotely a lot. I've always loved to fish. Grew up fishing with my dad, my uncles. I'm one of two daughters in the family, and so I think I got the tomboy gene. And yeah, I know, right? Spent all of my hours outside as a kid. Like, we had ponds and stuff where I grew up, so I'd stay out till dark fishing until my mom called and said, you got to come back in the house, let's go, like you're gonna be eaten alive by something. But the kayak fishing thing is kind of I guess out of necessity. I really wanted to get out on the water and fish. I didn't want to deal with a bass boat or anything like that, or a John boat. It's just seemed like a lot of trouble. Although now that I have been kayak fishing for probably 3 years, I'm like, it's just as much work, y'all. Just as much work. I mean, I trailer it, I take everything off of it, put everything on it. It might even be more work getting it in and out of the water. So, but the kayak fishing in tournaments and that kind of thing. So, I bought my kayak in I think 2021, and I started out in a native. Now I fish out of a Hobie, so I graduated. No offense to native, no offense to native. I still have my native. But I love to travel and I love to fish, and so I really needed a purpose for getting out. Always wanted to go to Lake Fork, always wanted to go to, Caddo or Toledo Bend, and really, like, I'm very competitive. So tournaments gave me a purpose for making those trips and a reason and all that kind of stuff. So my very first kayak tournament ever was the Bassmaster in 2021 on Lake Fork. I'd never fished a tournament before.
Wow.
Never fished a kayak tournament before. Like, maybe I'd done like a couple of like little like online things like with KBF, like monthly challenges, like once or twice before that. And I just dove headlong into it. I mean, I was like, part of it was the name, right? Like, Bassmasters are a reputable company and brand, tournament trail. I do have quite a bit of experience on the saltwater side of tournaments. So my boyfriend does a lot of offshore saltwater tournaments, which are very different. But I recognize the Bassmaster name. And so I said, well, you know what? I've always wanted to fish Lake Fork. So I'm going to take a few days off of work. And I'm going to go fish. I had probably been in my kayak a handful of times, like less than 5 times, probably.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, definitely less than 5 times. And, I was terrified. It was kind of scary. I got a motel room that had that was right on the water, had a boat ramp. I'll think of the name of it in a minute. But anyway, and I was like, I'm going to launch here every day, and I'm just going to fish this little cove. And that's what I did. In practice, both days I fished in the same place, and I fished the same place in the tournament, and I did terrible. It was not good. I did. I think I caught 2 fish. It's only a 1-day tournament, so that's when Bassmaster was only doing 1-day tournaments. So, I caught 2 fish during the tournament. One was a 17-inch fish, and the other was like a 23 1/4 or a 23 3/4. It was a big fish.
22 3/4.
Was that what it was? It was a big fish. I think it was the second biggest fish out of the tournament.
Wow.
And after I caught that big fish, I was hooked. It was so much fun. I just had a blast. Like, I didn't even care that I didn't catch a limit. I didn't care that I didn't really do that great, and somebody I guess maybe after the tournament was over, there you go, somebody asked me, they're like, hey, are you going to fish Eufaula? And I was like, where's Eufaula? Like, I don't even know what this is. Like, Oklahoma. I had to Google it. I had to Google it. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And so I was like, yeah, that seems like fun. So I packed up my stuff and I drove to Eufaula and I fished, and it was terrible. But that's kind of sort of how I got started. I just dove in and was just like, I'm going to do this, and I'm having a great time. So, and I've never looked back.
That's awesome. That's definitely jumping in the deep end for sure.
Yes.
Which I didn't realize at the time. Like, I definitely did not realize it at the time, but I don't think I'd go back and do it any different.
Right. If you can start there, heck yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I got started into kayak fishing. I was just like, we're going to do this. I mean, I think I even only had like 4 rods. I had to borrow rods from people for my first couple of tournaments. So, yeah.
Wow. That is awesome. So, like, I pulled up your stats here on Tourney X just to kind of look to see kind of what you've dove into. And my gosh, you went full steam ahead. But I mean, like, that's freaking awesome,
Yeah.
for being a lady too. I'm looking at all this. It's just like, yeah, Pickwick, Hobie B.O.S, and I mean, you can kind of see here the trend of your skills improving through the tournaments as well. I mean, it's awesome because I mean, your third tournament in 2022, you had 10th place out of 87 anglers. So I mean, like, you're doing something right.
Yeah. I think I was like 1 or 2 spots short of cutting a check on that one. That was Lake Nacogdoches, right?
How do you say it?
Nacogdoches.
Nacogdoches. Yeah. I was like, I don't know how to say that.
That's also funny because my sister, Nacogdoches is near Lufkin. My sister lives in Lufkin, and me and my son went to her house that weekend, and I was like, hey, there's a tournament on Lake Nacogdoches on Saturday. I was like, do y'all want to fish it? And this is on like a Thursday night. And they're like, yeah, sure. And we've been there a handful of times. I've fished it before, but hadn't fished it in probably over a year. And I was like, okay. So I signed all 3 of us up. We all 3 have kayaks. Had to borrow catch boards for the 2 of them because we didn't have extra boards. So did not practice, went in blind. My motor would not work the morning of the tournament. Like, we were sitting there waiting for, first launch, and go to turn on my trolling motor. Nope, won't work. And I was like, I am not pedaling. So I hop in the water, take my trolling motor off, kick my kayak back up on the bank, and I'm running with this XI3 up the boat ramp. So throw it in my car with the battery. So I pedaled all day, and it was like 10 to 13 knot winds that day.
Oh,
it was terrible. And this is really kind of maybe not funny from coming from me, but when I tell the story, I always say this. There was a bunch of grown men that turned around and went home that day because it was so windy. After about maybe the first 30 minutes, there were people packing up their stuff. They were like, we're done with this. And man, it was fun. It was fun. So went in blind on that one. And I was pretty close to cutting a check.
I was going to say, and no motor, and you still got 10th. That's awesome.
Yeah. And was taking like 2 for real noobs. Like, I don't think either one of them had ever fished a tournament before. And I was just like, let's go, kids. Like, we're going to do this. Now, I don't remember how they did, but, it was still fun.
That is awesome. Like, you're going to be like my new role model.
Well, that's too sweet.
That is amazing.
Yeah,
so,
but go ahead. No. What I was going to say is, like, that first year, I fished all Bassmaster tournaments, I think except for one. And that was the year that if you fished 4 out of their, I think, 6 tournaments, you automatically qualified for the Classic. So after I fished Fork and Eufaula, I was like, well, shoot, if I fish Pickwick and some other one, I forget what it was. I'll think of it in a minute. If I fish these other 2, well, then I'll qualify. And so I was like, well, okay. And so I did. I fished those 4 tournaments. It was lacrosse. It was Fork, Eufaula, Pickwick, and lacrosse. Lacrosse was a disaster. I have so many stories, y'all. Lacrosse was a disaster that year. But I made that my goal, right? Like, I always set a goal, always have a goal for, something to achieve. And so now I did not fish the Classic that I qualified for, because the more that I fished, the more I realized I didn't want to qualify for it that way, because I didn't qualify on my skills as an angler. I qualified, because I had the time and the, energy and effort to fish all these tournaments. So I ended up not fishing that Classic that year, but it was fun trying to qualify.
Wow.
Well, just those lakes in themselves are bucket list lakes for, everybody. So just to be able to cross those off, let alone, doing okay and competing in the Bassmaster event when it's like your first real, season in a kayak. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about, kind of your first impressions, with some of your tournaments. I'm sure signing up for them, you're like, man, there's a lot of guys in this stuff, but maybe saw a couple ladies, depending on which events they were and whatnot, and maybe also seeing, the decked out kayaks that everybody has, because I mean, even sometimes when I look at some of them with the 2 fish finders up front and everything, trolling motor on the back, 12 rods, and I'm like, whoa.
Like, what is this spaceship? Yeah. So, I mean, I guess it's a little intimidating. The more you guys get to know me, and the more like followers or whatever get to know me, you'll realize that it takes a lot to intimidate me. There's very, very few things that I'm afraid to do. And kind of like when I put my mind to doing something, it's either 1,000 miles an hour or no. And so I knew when I registered for that tournament, like that very first one, that fort tournament, I knew when I registered for it that I was probably one of the only like ladies there. I know Christine fished it. I did not know her at the time. I met her like year or so later. I don't remember if there were any other ladies that fished it. So it was not intimidating, but it was just a little like weird. It was just kind of awkward, going to the captain's meeting and being one of the only girls there. But again, I kind of have that saltwater tournament background, which since that's typically done in teams, there's more women for sure, but it's definitely mostly guys. And so I'm kind of used to going to a captain's meeting and there being, 100 dudes there and you're one of the only chicks. So it didn't really bother me all that much. And I'll always tell this story, and I hope that Jeff and Nate don't ever get tired of hearing it. But one of the big reasons that I stuck with it is Jeff Isham and Nate McIntosh were 2 of the first guys that I ever met at a kayak tournament. They were at the boat ramp where I was staying on the Friday before that fort tournament. They had fished kind of the same area that I did. And I was coming off the water. They had already packed up all their stuff. And both of them made a point to like come introduce themselves to me. And they were just, really polite and nice. And, I told them it was my first tournament. And they were like, well, if you need anything, let us know. Like, don't be afraid to ask. Just very like personable, very welcoming. I've become great friends with the 2 of them. And they made like a point to kind of like tell some of the other guys that they fish with, like, hey, there's a girl from Huntsville here, because they live kind of not far from where I live, different towns, but not all that far. And so, I'll never forget it. It's hilarious. I was walking from my car to the captain's meeting, and this guy, not Nate or Jeff, and I didn't know anybody else other than them. This other guy, he goes, hey, are you that girl from Huntsville? And I was like, kind of looked at him like, yeah, maybe. Like, I don't know you. And anyway, so the word kind of got around, and everybody kind of like took me under their wing a little bit, made sure that I felt welcome and safe and all that kind of stuff. So I think if I hadn't had that first experience might have been a little bit different, but now I've kind of gotten to know everybody, and everybody's like family, and I love it. So I haven't really had I haven't had that many bad experiences. I've had a couple here and there, but I think guys could say the same. I don't think it has anything to do with me being a girl. Let me put it that way.
I was going to ask, having experienced both the the saltwater tournament series, what's the same and what's different?
Oh, I think the trash talking is the same, right? Like the trash talking is definitely the same. Like, put your money where your mouth is. And, as far as differences go, man, I don't know. That's kind of a tough one. Um, I think they're all alike in the sense that, everybody has their issues with the rules, or this tournament organization, kind of has beef with that tournament organization.
What?
Yeah.
That never happens.
I don't think that there is as big of a sense of community, and this might sound kind of weird, and I think it depends on at what level or area you're fishing in saltwater tournaments, right? So there's like inshore stuff, there's offshore stuff, there's lots of different things. I don't feel like there's as big of a sense of community among the anglers. Because when you get on those big offshore tournaments, you're talking about big boats that run, they've got a crew for the boat, then you've got people who are anglers, and that's different. I think there's a sense of community among boat captains, which is more like where we fit in the kayak world, right? Like we are the captain of our ship. So we have a little bit different community. So there's a kind of a difference in between anglers and captains in that world, I feel like.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
But like Susie, you were asking about like kayaks and gear and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So for that fork tournament, I had never even had a graph on my boat before that tournament. I installed the graph and the trolling motor. No, not the trolling motor, but the graph on my boat like the weekend before that tournament. So I've never used it.
Oh, wow.
I did not put a motor on my boat until Pickwick. And I had never used it before at all until the moment I launched my kayak on Pickwick. And I'm like, how does this thing work? Like, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's very intimidating. But now I'm like, I've got a Hobie, and I don't have a bunch of screens, but I do have live scope. I've got a Newport, so I've done a little bit of, I'm not going to say everything, almost everything.
Sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I just got my my first motor at the beginning of this year too, and it is, and a couple of years ago when they were really starting to get popular and everything, I was just kind of like, I don't know, like, do I want to go with the crowd on everything to get the thing that everybody's getting? I was like, I'll wait for a little bit, just to, kind of see what else comes out, because at the time there was just Torpedo and Motor Guide, and then the Newport came out too, and I was just like, ooh, because like I wanted the option of being able to like have my own like size of battery and everything.
Yeah.
And with like the Newport, yeah, you can hook it up to any battery you want. And so, yeah, oh my God, it makes covering water just like a night and day difference. It is awesome.
Yeah, it is. I'm a fan. I am a fan of motors. So
that's right.
Only Hobie allowed them.
I know, right? Which, I think is still kind of very unique of Hobie because, I like it in a lot of ways, in some ways I'm like, well, it might limit some other people, but like, I feel that it gives everybody a little bit more of a fair advantage in a sense of just like maneuverability. And that's what I kind of like about it, because they still have kind of like that edge, in a sense, compared to all the other trails, because everybody allows motors, everybody allows this and that. And Hobie's just like, you know what, we're gonna stay, old fashioned in a sense,
Yeah. Sorry, my cat has popped into the chat. He's very jealous.
The cat has entered the chat.
The cat has entered the chat. When I fished that Eufaula event, I didn't have a motor on my kayak, and pretty much everybody else that I was around did. And oh boy, I felt like the odd man out, but I have mixed feelings about it now. Like I really don't mind that Hobie doesn't allow motors, I do feel like it makes it a very level playing field for everybody. But it's definitely a time management skill that if you are going to fish a Hobie tournament and you're going to use a motor in practice, you had better have some good time management on tournament days because yeah. What was that? A Caddo and Bistino this year. I actually fished Bistino and used my motor in practice, which I had kind of told myself I wasn't going to do. That I was only going to use. Now I was just going to pedal in practice because I can't use a motor in tournament, whatever. And I really think that hurt me last year because I couldn't cover as much water in practice to find fish, to find spots, right? And so at the Friday before the tournament, I just went to Bistino on a whim. I wasn't planning on fishing Bistino, but man, I got on a really good pattern. I got on some really good fish in practice and kind of was able to, I used my motor and I found like 8 spots on the map where I could repeat that pattern anywhere. And so I was like, well, at least I know I've got places to go. And Saturday during the tournament went okay. Sunday was kind of rough. The weather kind of changed on us that day. And let me tell you, I hit all 8 of them spots on foot power.
Wow.
On that Sunday. It was a beast. So I like to think, I thank Hobie for my workouts. My Hobie kayak is my gym.
Awesome. Which kayak are you fishing out of?
I have a PA-14, the 360.
360.
Yeah, I got that at the end of the season last year. So September of 2022.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Very cool.
So so it sounds like, you've taken a lot of things that you've learned just in the short amount of time that you have been kayak fishing and put a lot of it into practice. I mean, you're talking about how you're, covering water, you're figuring out patterns, you had 8 spots kind of nailed down for that tournament. So it sounds like you're catching on pretty darn quick.
I'm trying, man. They don't make a manual for what we do. So
right. What has been, I would say, what has been the greatest thing about, getting into kayak fishing, and what's been the most challenging part of it?
Ooh. The greatest thing, man, I'm not in it to cash checks and win every time I fish a tournament. I think that just sets people up for disappointment. I love the community. I love the family. I've got friends all over the United States. And I think I really needed that, and so for me, the best thing about it is, making those connections with people. It is an industry, just the fishing industry in general is just something I'm really passionate about. I think it took me longer than it should have to realize that. I think people spend a lot of their lives trying to figure out what they're passionate about. And especially, I think this is maybe one thing that's kind of like a woman thing, right? You're raised a certain way that you can only do certain things. These things are for men. These things are not for you. And sometimes it's hard to jump that hurdle whenever you're passionate about something that doesn't necessarily fit the gender stereotype. And I know for me, it was like, well, I'm supposed to go to college. So I did, I actually work at a university. So I went to college and never left. So that's but, it's kind of like I got stuck in that stereotype. Right. And then when I finally was like, this is something that I really, really love to do. And because before that, it was everything I did was my job. Everything was my job. And I do love my job. So for my Sam Houston people, I love you. You are still wonderful. You are still great. I love my job. But it was literally, I'd be up till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning working.
Oh.
And for what? You know what I'm saying? Like, why? And so I had to put that time and energy and passion into something else. And kayak fishing is what I chose. And I feel like I made the right decision. It's paid off for me. So it's my passion, truly. And I love it. But and the people in the community, like you guys, has kept me invested in it. It just keeps getting better and better every year. And I'm new to it. I've been doing this about 3 years now. So I still feel like I'm new. There's people who've been around a lot longer than me. But I see like how passionate everyone is and that it's always moving in a positive direction. Not every day is it positive, but it's always going on an upward trajectory, right? Which is important. So I think to me, that's the best thing about it is it's my passion. It's one of my true loves in life. The most difficult thing about it, I don't know. I don't have enough time to do as much of it as I want to. Maybe. I mean, tournament fishing, I think, has its difficulties in a way. Like, I could probably talk about that all day, but like, if we're just talking in general, it can be toxic if you let it. It can be really toxic if you let it. And, there's a lot of people out there that if they're not in the top 10 every tournament or whatever, they don't cash check, they get upset, or, they want to, their day didn't go the way they wanted it to, so they want to try to bring you down. And, I just don't have time for that.
That's an awesome mentality to have. And I can relate in a sense too, because for the first few years when I was into kayak fishing, like I still struggle with this today. Just it's a self-image thing too. Being a woman in a very male-dominated sport, it's just like that society expectation of certain standards in a way. And the biggest thing that I've struggled with is just like my overall just like physique in a sense. So it's like, okay, society has said it to where, well, you're a woman, you gotta look a certain way, you gotta be a certain way and stuff like that. And so like that mentality at first was really hard to like just kind of knock out of my brain and be like, no, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I mean, I still struggle with it, quite a bit to this day sometimes, because I mean, I'm not tall, skinny or anything, I'm short and chubby, by all means, which, I work on every day, try to, tell myself that I am better. But, it's relatable in a sense, because it's like you said, it's like, just being a woman coming into a very highly male dominated sport, it's hard not to feel some sort of peer pressure or expectation in a sense,
Yeah. And I think one of my first memories, and this was actually said to me at the first tournament that I fished, that something along the lines of, oh yeah, you're a chick, all you got to do is throw on a bikini and you'll have every sponsor you want, or some BS like that. And it's the classic fishing a bikini thing, right? And very, very little gets under my skin, and I was just kind of like, yeah, okay, well, yeah, no, like that's not. I don't really actually think that's the way to get sponsors. And yeah, it's interesting for sure.
And I would think just in kayak angling specifically, if you look at the women that I would say are brand sponsors, they kind of buck that trend, if you will. Like, the Christines and they're not pictured like that, and it's refreshing, I guess is the word I would use.
Yeah, and I don't think that sponsors really want that. Like, the only time you're ever going to see me in a bathing suit fishing is if I'm fishing an offshore tournament. And that's only if I'm stuck in that fighting chair, because it's hot. But, but I can count, I can think of one time that I've done that. And you will probably have to dig a little bit to find it. So, it's not, I don't think it's, I don't know. I don't think wearing a bathing suit and fishing, I mean, wear whatever you want. I don't care. There's lots of people out there that do it. And if that's their choice, that's great. It's just not the avenue that I would choose, and especially that, like, in bass fishing, I just don't feel like that's what sponsors really want, maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, I agree with you too. Like if you Google or look on, Instagram, Facebook, or whatever, and you look at, professional anglers, whether it be, and I'm talking lady anglers, so like it could be fly fishing, saltwater, kayak fishing, even the Lady Bass Anglers Association.
Yeah.
Like, you look at all of those ladies, and like, that you wouldn't even know that, like, they were, professional anglers. Like, they just seem like everyday normal people, and like they come from all different sorts of backgrounds, ethnicities, different looks, different statures,
Mm-hmm.
and even looking at their social media pages, like, they're not going out there and, wearing like a little thong bikini or anything like that, because that's not what it's about. And that's what people in this industry and this sport, really try to emphasize too. And it's just like, yeah, okay, it's pretty obvious the ladies who are only wanting to flaunt themselves for attention, maybe some sponsors or whatnot, but they're not in this for the professional part of it, or for, being like an angler in a sense. They're just not. And it's obvious. And, they're going to get so far. I mean, yeah, they'll have tons of followers or whatever, but the quality of followers they will have will probably
No. Yeah, no. And I guess the thing that I find interesting about it is there's this kind of, I don't want to say pressure, but it's, no one is talking about what male anglers are wearing while they're fishing, right? Like, oh my gosh, whoever, Kevin Van Dam was fishing in board shorts. Oh my.
Right,
No one, we're not having this conversation about guys, Susie. Like, why isn't Carl Jochumson wearing whatever? No one is literally having that conversation, but it's always brought up whenever in conversations about women. So
about women. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know.
Always, every time. I mean, being a tournament director and, being on social media and stuff like that, if there ever is something talked about when it comes to dudes, it's either A, because they're wearing jeans, which I still don't understand why guys wear jeans.
Jordan Marshall. I promise it's probably him.
Right? And then the other number one thing that people will talk about all the time is guys' feet.
Yes.
I was gonna mention Crocs, but I didn't know,
Listen, y'all, if we need to start like a GoFundMe for pedicures for the men, I am in. I will donate. Take care of your toes, guys.
Seriously, like, some of y'all got some interesting feet.
Yes,
maybe that's what we need to start doing. Be like, all right, we're gonna start judging you on your feet now.
Yeah.
Just make it a like, playing field.
Some of the guys that know me real well that I fish with, they laugh at me because I'm not super girly, okay? I mean, like a little bit. I have my moments, all right? But the one thing that I do that's very girly is I always get a manicure and a pedicure, almost always right before a tournament. Because I don't know why, I just, I don't know, maybe it was like something my grandmother ingrained in me, is that you should have beautiful hands and beautiful feet. Don't ask me why. I don't know. She's long gone from this world, so I can't ask her, but so I almost always, now I'm not talking about like acrylic nails. That's too much. I can't do that. We're just talking about painted, like just plain Jane painted. But I always tell them that it doesn't matter where I am. I will stop somewhere. Like after the first day of practice, I don't care what town I'm in. I will find some little hole in the wall place to get a manicure and a pedicure. And it doesn't matter who it is. I'm getting a pedicure from Tammy. I'm busy. So I can come to dinner with y'all later, but I got to go see Tammy about some business.
Well, that's very interesting.
Everybody needs a Tammy wherever they are.
I know one thing, like Christine mentioned, and I remember when we talked to Catherine Field, they've all mentioned too that having young girls come up to them and say, oh, I watched you fish, and that's why I got into fishing. And I think being ambassadors of the sport in that way is going to bring, we're all about growing our sport in whatever way we can, but that's introducing a whole new audience that not new, but someone who might not otherwise have get introduced to the sport. And I think that's really cool too. Christine's told us some pretty cool stories about that kind of thing. And I just can't imagine what that feels like to have someone come up to you and say that. So
yeah, it's really, it's very touching. It's very moving to know that like you've encouraged someone to either enter the sport, or that they went and bought their first fishing rod, or fish their first tournament. Or my big thing is I always encourage dads to take their daughters fishing. My dad always did that with me as a little girl. And I have anytime I hear like somebody who's going to be a new dad, I'm like, well, you need to take her fishing, right? You know this, right? Oh, I know. I will. Okay. And or somebody saying something about, oh, there was some friend of ours one time who was like, well, she wants to go with me, but she's only 5 or she's only 6. And I'm like, and like, doesn't matter. Like, take her with you. Yes, maybe you're going to have to pull the boat over for her to go to the bathroom somewhere. But suck it up. Suck it up. It's fine. But yeah, it's really fun whenever you have that happen. I always make a point, like if I'm at a boat ramp or something like that, and I see like somebody there with their daughter or just their kids, right? Like their kids in general, because not that kayak fishing is unusual, but I think you guys probably can relate. You get a lot of questions about your boat at the boat ramp, or what are you doing, or what kind of boat is that, like what's going on. And so I always make a point to spend like some extra time, especially talking to folks that are there with their kids. And usually they're always asking like, oh, well, what did you catch today, or what are you catching them on? So I always give away like lures, and that's why like I have stuff everywhere. I'm just like, oh, here, I caught them on this jackhammer. You want it? And they're like, yeah. So I'll just cut it off. Here you go. But I just think it's stuff like that people will remember that, right? Like my hope is like that these little girls that I've run into, they're like, maybe they're never going to remember my name. But it's like, yeah, I met this lady one time, and she was all into fishing, and she gave me this lure, and I don't know. It's really kind of sweet. It's a lot of fun. It's definitely a highlight, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Definitely a highlight.
So, what are your future plans? What are your goals? The next year, next couple years. What do you want to do? Do you want to be the next Christine Fisher?
There's only one Christine Fisher. One fish, y'all.
Right.
That's a good question. I don't know if I've decided what my goals are completely yet. I work full time. My son's a sophomore in high school. There's no way that I'm going to be able to quit my day job and make a run at, being a full-time kayak angler as much as I would love to, right?
Right.
This year I had really only intended on fishing Hobie tournaments this year. And I think the first Bassmaster that I fished was lacrosse. Hadn't fished any other Bassmaster events this year. And kind of sort of on a whim decided to go to lacrosse this year and fish it. So my goal was to qualify for the TOC. And now I'm looking to qualify for Bassmaster and the TOC.
Wow.
So I'm hoping I qualify for both. If
Yeah.
I get lucky, I will. I don't want to jinx it, but if I get lucky, I will. So I'll have to qualify on points unless in one of these last two events I pull off a miracle. But I did well enough at lacrosse that it made sense
To give it a shot, yeah.
give it a shot. So yeah.
Heck yeah, that's awesome.
Yep.
I'm gonna have that goal too.
Let me tell you, I had a bone to pick with lacrosse this year, so I was not expecting to do well. Like I told you guys that. So it's 2
Yeah,
years
you said
ago.
it was rough the first
It was
time.
terrible. It was terrible. I mean, I'll give you all the Reader's Digest version, but I mean, I drove. Of course, I drove from Texas to
Oh my god,
lacrosse. It's 18 hours, right?
Wow.
So
like a 6 hour drive for me.
that's one that I split across 2 days. If it's anything over like 14 hours, I don't know. I have a hard time with that. I haven't graduated to that level of kayak fishing yet, where you're like sleeping in the Walmart parking lot. I just haven't made it there yet, y'all. One day maybe, but anyway, I had car problems on the way down there. Like randomly, my car just would not lock. Wouldn't like engine trouble. It wouldn't lock.
Oh no!
You push the button and it lock and then unlock. And no Toyota dealership would look at my car because it was kind of sort of still COVID times. So if you didn't have an appointment and it's going to be 3 days, and I'm like, I don't have time for this. So anyway, I get to lacrosse to my Airbnb, and what I had ended up doing, no joke, was I drive a 4Runner, so the back window in the hatch of my car rolls down.
Mm-hmm.
So I would turn my car off, lock the doors from inside the car, and then I'd roll that window down, crawl out the back, and then you can use your key to roll the window back up. That was the only way I could get in and out of my car.
Wow.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's good thinking, but still, that's kind of crazy.
Very ingenuitive, I guess. But then I figured out what it was the problem was I had plugged a power bank into my USB in my car to charge. And when my car was off, it was like doing something with the wiring. So anyway, I unplugged the power bank, and lo and behold, my car was fine. So
wow.
Crisis averted. So that's how it started.
Oh my
How it ended was me getting my car stuck in a boat ramp in Minnesota and having to have a tow truck come pull it out.
Oh no!
There was nobody else around. Like it just would not come out of the boat ramp. It was just stuck. I put sticks under the tires. I put boards under the tires. I did all the things. Like I grew up in Texas. Like I know how to get vehicles unstuck. No. Had to call a tow truck. And so it just ruined my whole last day of practice. I don't know. I think I caught like 2 fish during the tournament. And I'm like, I drove 18 hours to catch a fish that was this big. Like, why? Like, what is happening? So when I went back this time, I was like, I don't know about this. I told my mom, I said, if I have one problem, I need one. I am turning around and going back home. And yeah, I don't remember what all I had happen on the way down there. I did have a few things happen. I had to rewire my trailer. That's what I had to do. My trailer lights came unplugged. I say rewired. That's an exaggeration. But my trailer lights came unplugged somewhere between I don't know, Kansas City and some other place in Missouri. I don't know. Anyway, and the highway just ate the trailer tail off of my car. I
Oh,
put my
wow.
lights in, but lucky for me, I have learned the hard way to carry all the things you need to do wiring, and I had taught myself how to do it. I wired my trailer whenever I built my trailer, so I went to O'Reilly's, bought the stuff, and I had everything to fix it. So I fixed it myself, and then I kicked butt during the tournament. So
Very
we
cool.
lost
You got
tonight.
your revenge.
I got
Nice.
my revenge. I got my revenge on lacrosse. So ended up 12th. I was tied for 11th and ended up in 12th. So
That's pretty awesome
That
again.
is pretty impressive. Yeah.
30 anglers. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
that is amazing. So, have you either like pursued or been offered or dove into like the world of like, getting sponsorships or anything like that?
Yeah, a little bit here and there. I really didn't um, start looking for sponsors until this year, like the end of last season for this year.
Mhm.
And so I do have a few. I'm sponsored by Dobyns rods. I used their rods. Some of the first rods, like nice rods, that I purchased, and they're a Texas company. They're out of Sulphur Springs, and I'm really big on trying to support companies that are what I consider local. And so a friend of mine actually introduced me to Dobyns, and I have a great relationship with them. They're a really wonderful company, great company to work with if you're looking for a sponsor for rods. I'm also sponsored by X Zone Lures, which is also another lure company that they really had certain products that I loved before I was ever even sponsored by them. So that's kind of like a big thing for me. I think a lot of people, it's like they start kayak fishing and they do it for, however long, a year or something, and they're like, well, I have to get sponsors. I have to do this. You don't have to have sponsors. It's not, you're not any less of an angler if you don't have sponsors versus having 10 sponsors. They're not, Boy Scout badges for you to collect, which
Yep.
in I think some people think that, well, I have to have a hook sponsor and a weight sponsor and a this sponsor and a that sponsor. And um, I never view it that way. I view it as they're products from companies that I really, truly can endorse, because I feel like that's my reputation. And as long as I have a good reputation and they're a good and reputable company, that's a mutually beneficial relationship for both of us. So, and like my background is marketing. And so it's very, to me, like I kind of get their perspective on it. They're making an investment in you as an angler, and you are making an investment with your time and energy promoting their products for them. They have to be able to get something out of it, and anyway, so Dobyns and X Zone were two of my very first sponsors. I'm also sponsored by the Rod Glove, which is owned by the same parent company as X Zone. And then recently, I now have a relationship with FishUSA, which is an online tackle retailer, a really excellent company to work with. I know there's lots of great companies out there, but I really like the people. I've ordered things from them before. That was kind of one where I didn't have as much experience with them, but we kind of were put into contact with some by a mutual friend, and it's been a great relationship. They're wonderful people. So, I don't feel like I'm as experienced with sponsorship type things as some people are, because it's relatively new to me. But I'm definitely only interested in companies. I can only do so much. I'm not a full-time angler. and I'm not going to oversell myself to people and make them think I can do all these amazing things. But the companies that I do work with, I really enjoy, and they've been really, really good to me.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I can definitely hype up FishUSA. They sponsor our local trail, and they are generous every year with the stuff that they give us. They're very cool people.
Yeah, they're a bunch of great guys and gals, and I just can't say enough good things about them. It's been a game changer for me. I really like working with them for sure.
Awesome. And definitely, good insight to have too, being relatively new, not wanting to just think or feel that you have to have, every kind of, sponsor that there is out there too.
Yeah.
Because again, it's like you're saying, it's not a Boy Scout patch, that you collect,
Yeah,
it's a partnership.
Yeah, it's a partnership, really. And it's really kind of interesting because, you'll hear a lot of people talk about how, or if you've ever heard any kind of company that will open up and talk about what it's like to be the company where people are trying to, get sponsorship from you. At the Possum Kingdom tournament, I did an Instagram takeover for Dobyns. And so basically that, whatever Wednesday through Sunday of that tournament, I ran their Instagram account. And I cannot tell you how many messages in that 4-ish day span that they got from people saying, "Oh, hey, me and my buddy just placed, 8th in this local derb. How about 5 free rods and a 50% discount and blah blah blah." And I'm going, the audacity. Okay. So I mean, and just it was, I feel like every third or fourth message was
give me free stuff.
Guys asking for free stuff.
Wow.
I mean, so I can't even imagine what it's like to be on their end and get a bazillion requests like that. You really do have to, think long and hard about how you're going to approach those sponsors. And anyway.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. We could have a whole podcast segment, on how to even, approach and talk to sponsors and get sponsorships. Because I mean, that's a whole different ballgame in itself too.
It is. And I definitely don't have it all figured out.
Yeah, there's still a lot I have to figure out too. But again, too, it's just a balance of, okay, what do you have time for committing to, different sponsors and partnerships. You have to realize that, okay, Woo Tungsten gives everybody a sponsorship in a sense, and everybody starts with a 10% discount, So it's okay, that's nothing special or anything like that. But if you are really wanting, to get a partnership and whatnot, you have to work for it.
Yep.
You have to prove and show and tell, this company how you are currently doing it, how you've previously done it, if you haven't, and how you will continue to do it, because all these companies, they're looking at your social media. They're looking at what you're doing. And if you've got a lot of nonsense and, garbage on your page, they're not always going to look too kindly at some of that stuff.
No.
Yeah. So, but yeah, definitely some good food for thought.
Absolutely. Well, guys, what else?
Yeah.
Well, I guess we were going to give you a chance to shout out where folks can find you and follow along.
Okay, cool. Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube, and should all be Weslie Gray Fishing. So you should be able to find me. I think all my handles are the same. They should be. But yeah, definitely follow me. Like Instagram and YouTube are the two biggest places where you'll see the most stuff from me. My Facebook page is still new. I resisted starting that for a long time, but here I am.
Right.
Here I am.
Awesome stuff.
Well, very cool.
Having me on, guys. It's been a lot of fun chatting with y'all.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us and,
Of course.
showing a little bit of what it's like being in your world.
Yeah, it's definitely the perspective is cool to hear from all sides, and yeah.
I'm glad to hear it's been positive and hope it continues to be positive.
Yep, me too. I think there are good things to come.
Awesome.
Well, we look forward to looking to see those.
Yeah, and following along. Yeah, seeing how you're doing. So cool.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, everyone, thanks again for listening. Make sure you go out and check out Weslie's sponsors and her social media presence, and definitely support her as we're going to as well. And as always, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Bass Fishing for Noobs here on the Paddle and Fin podcast, where we bring you the techniques, the tricks, and the tips to help you rip more lips. Have a good night, guys.